you to welcome on the stage. He is an actor and Academy Award-nominated writer whose work includes The Frost Report, How to Irritate People, The Muppet Show, A Fish Called Wanda, Time Bandits, if you hear anything you like, make some noise, Silverado, Rat Race, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and Roman Polanski's upcoming film, The Palace. He has recurred in several film and TV franchises, including James Bond, Shrek, Harry Potter, Monty Python, and of course, Faulty Towers. Please welcome Cleese.
Hey, thank you very much. I can't tell you how much pleasure it gives me when everyone thinks, oh my God, he's completely lost it. Oh, I did it in Dubai last Saturday, and I was wheeled on in a wheelchair. I did about 2 minutes of it was hilarious because one woman walked out. She paid for a ticket. She saw the first 90 seconds and she thought, I'm out of here. What do you want?
Well, all right. Well, first of all, welcome to Richmond.
Thank you.
Thank you. So glad to have you here. Whenever I get someone like yourself, I like to just real quick. Let's go back to the beginning. What compelled you to want to act and write and this creative venture that you've been in?
Well, I was on course to becoming a lawyer. I had my last year at Cambridge, I got to pass my law exams, and I was going to be a lawyer. And then I joined a group called the Footlights, which is like the Hasty Pudding at Harvard, and we did a little show in the local professional theatre, and it was just to give us a very good show. And nothing happened in the first week, and then in the second week, when we went back to the club room afterwards for a drink, there was a nice young man who said, I like your show very much and I want to put it on in the West End. And we were absolutely astounded. I said, well, it's a student review. Well, he said, no, it's very funny. And then about 2 days later, I went after the show up there again, and there were two men in suits, and they say, we'd like you to come and work for the BBC. And we will pay you £30 a week. And if I'd gone on being a lawyer, I would have been paid £12 a week. So I escaped. I never did anything legal again. I'll tell you one or two of my favorite stories. There's a very good story about American lawyers. What are you doing in the middle of the room? Why don't you sit down? I've got a good reaction. My favorite joke about American lawyers is this, that the US postal system decided to create a special anniversary system to honor all the great, most famous American lawyers. You know, it was a special issue. And they did so, but after about 2 weeks, they had to recall all the stamps because people using them couldn't figure out which side of the stamp to spit on. My other joke is about the fact that at psychology departments in universities now, the people who are carrying out experiments with pigeons and rats and all this kind of thing, they no longer use rats, they use lawyers. And there's three reasons for this. One is that there's more lawyers than rats. The second is there's some things that rats won't do. And the third one is that there had been a problem in the past that sometimes the experimenters had got fond of the rats. So I escaped.
Yeah, the world is better for it.
The world is better for it. Yes, because it's nice if I make people laugh. I think laughter is a good thing.
I absolutely think so. Seemed like every decade, in the United States at least, it seemed like somebody was always trying to do an Americanized reboot of Faulty Towers, and they do a pilot, and they stick through, whatever. But you're actually, with your daughter, bringing it back. How's that going on?
Well, yes, we did, Connie Booth and I, when we were married, did the first 6 shows, and then we got divorced and did the next 6 shows just to puzzle people. And afterwards, we were very happy, and we never believed it would get bigger viewing figures than 40 Stars. Than Monty Python. I always assumed it would be a loss of revenue, but I wanted to work with my wife. And then it became hugely popular in the UK now. It's been voted several times the top British sitcom. So when I said very recently we were going to try and do it again, people said, oh, it won't be as good, it won't be as good. And I said, I know. I'm not stupid. When you've done something really good, you'll probably not do something better. But the point was that my daughter, and I've been writing with her for 16 years now, she knew someone, and when we were doing a show in Las Vegas together, she said, will you have dinner with this guy, Matt George? And he sat down and said, I want to do an American version of it. And I said, we've tried 3, and they were all awful. I mean, I'll tell you something, you will not believe this, but it is absolutely true. When it happened for the 3rd time that an American company bought the rights for 40 Towers, I hadn't been told, and I went away for a weekend at a friend's house, and there were 2 American TV producers there, and they said, we bought the rights for 40 Towers. I said, are you serious? They said, yes, really. We know we can make it work. And I said, well, that's terrific, but do you think an American audience will understand the little sort of local family hotel when everything in America seems like change? And they said, no, there's no problem with that at all. In fact, we've only made one change. And I said, what's that? And they said, we've written Basil out. Can you believe that? And they did. They wrote Basil out. And of course, it was a disaster. Because basically, one of the things you realize once you get to my age is that very, very few people know what they're doing or what they're talking about. So something less than 15% anywhere have any idea what they're talking about. Especially in US television, where the percentage falls to about 1.5%. So Matt George said, oh, I want to do this. And I said, but how? And then my daughter, who was annoyingly clever, said that it shouldn't be in England, it shouldn't even be in London. It should be somewhere in the West Indies. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, if we set it on a small hotel, boutique hotel in the Caribbean, we can have a hugely multicultural cast, and the only person from the original show would be me. And something like we start with a wedding, with a wedding. I always confuse the two. We start with a funeral. You had a 3rd wife who took 20 million off you. You confused the two. No.
You said it, not me.
20 million. 20 million. My Californian lawyer said to me, you got off lightly. I said, lightly? I said, $20 million? He said, yes. Think how much more you would have had to pay her had she contributed anything to the relationship.
You're why I'm a bachelor.
No, I married a really nice one now. It's very nice to marry a wife you really like. I recommend it. Anyway, so what we realized was that if we got right away from the original, both in terms of the setting and in terms of the cast, we could come up with something that was very, very different. And half of the stuff would happen outside the hotel. You know, when they try to organize water sports or a walk through the forest, you know, this kind of thing, it could be very, very, very different. Recorded obviously on film and not in front of an audience in a TV studio. But we haven't really got very far with it yet because we know obviously that Camilla's my daughter. So why am I going to be or work with her in a Caribbean island? And the first thing we haven't sorted out is who is the mother? You know, is it civil? I don't think so. I can't imagine those two making the two-backed beast, can you? So maybe a very sexy lady came to the hotel while Sybil was away for the weekend and she seduced Basil or something, you know, which is why you never hear about the daughter in the early series, because of course Basil have to keep it a secret from Sybil. So we're working on all that stuff because that's the important stuff you have to get right.
Well, we look forward to further updates on that. We will stay tuned, and I'm so glad
It'll take a long time to get it right, because the one thing I discovered, which gives me a big advantage over most comedians, is that comedy is very difficult. It's the people who think it's easy who are not very good comedians. So I know it's going to take a long time to sort.
I'm just glad you are overseeing it. You are doing it at your own pace, and we are so looking forward to it when it
Good.
comes.
Well, I hope you like it. Always assuming that I can complete it before I die. Well, I'm very old. I'm 83. 83? To get to 83, you know, I mean, it's quite embarrassing. You go to parties and bits of you fall off. And you have to pick them up and put them in your pocket without anyone seeing you. You get them sewed on again when you get back home. I mean, it's no fun being old. In fact, death becomes a more and more appetizing alternative.
Not my panel, please. Oh, Patty, yeah, he's the guy that showed John Cleese.
What do you mean, panel? The panel is supposed to be several people. Why do you call when you've got it's an interview, it's not a panel. If there'll be a panel, there'll be other people sitting here.
I think I will forward that to my bosses.
Will you?
Really, I was way too.
He'll be one of the 85% who have no idea what they're doing. He can't speak, he doesn't know what to say now. His career is at an end. I'm sorry about that. It's not a panel. All right. Now, I thought I'd like to tell you about... Oh, you're back. Sorry. It gets sillier than this.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Speaking of silly, one thing that you've done that I really enjoy, and since we are a Comic-Con, I just want to talk about this real quick. You did a Superman graphic novel, Superman True Grit, with John Burns.
Oh, that was because my PA at that time was a lovely guy called Howard Johnson. He came to, when I first moved to California to live in Santa Barbara, he came and worked with me. And he was great on comics. And he said, can I write one and will you help me and make comments? So I said that. But I knew very little about it. I know nothing about comics or popular music. I have no idea. I never understood why people listen to rock. I think there's a kind of music called rock, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I have no idea why, because I listen to music so that it gives me pleasure. So I imagine there's a group of highly organized masochists who organize rock concerts, but I have no idea. The point is, rock has never moved me emotionally, and what I want from art is I want to be moved emotionally. We'll get a few more people clapping at this point, please. If you wanted to go on.
And for those who want to seek it out, it's called Superman True Grit. It's a Elseworld story where what if Superman's rocket ship landed in the UK and not the United States? And it's a bit of a satire on British culture and middle class.
Well, anyway, this lovely guy, Howard, I got to tell you how I met Howard. He was a huge fan of Monty Python. And in, let me get this right, 1978, we went off to Tunisia to shoot Life of Brian. And we were all having lunch in the open air the day before shooting started. And this tall, slightly geeky guy came up, was Howard. And he said, "Hi." We said, "Oh, hello." He said, "My name's Howard." We said, "Oh, hello, Howard." And he said, "Can I be in the movie?" He had hitchhiked from Chicago to Tunisia. Altogether, he played 18 roles. You know, all the different centurions and the stallholders, but he was in 18 different roles.
There you have it. I'm about ready to jump into the audience, take our questions. Before I do that, on behalf of myself, on behalf of this whole audience, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for your talents.
I'm an extraordinary talent. Thank you. Somebody, when I was signing autographs, said I was one of the greatest comedians in the world. I said, "What do you mean, one of them?" I don't know what happens when people start prostrating themselves in front of you, telling you how wonderful you are. I want to say, "Oh, behave."
And I also want to thank you as well for being a proponent of the creative freedom of comedy.
Yes, I think that we're in very great danger. Seriously, I think we're in great danger because what people don't understand is that all humor is critical. That's just not quite right. Puns are critical. But anything to do with a humorous character, you can't be funny about someone who is perfect. You know, when we did Life of Brian, we spent a few minutes, we thought, well, you can't be funny about Christ because he always behaved appropriately. What's funny is inappropriate behavior. You see what I mean? When people mess up or get something wrong, that's what comedy's about. So every single kind of comedy is actually critical. And the question is the criticism in form of humor made in a nasty way, which is horrible, because it's not actually supposed to be funny at all, it's just supposed to hurt people, so we don't do that. But all kinds of comedy can be got out of people if it's affectionate. I mean, people laugh at Basil Fawlty, not because he is a well-organized and emotionally mature creature. You see what I mean? He's ridiculous. But he makes us laugh and we feel affection towards him. So people do not understand that you can tease people affectionately and it's totally acceptable. It's what you all do when you get together with members of your family or old friends. You tease each other. We in English, we call it joshing, just teasing. But because it's done with affection, it is not in any way harmful. In fact, it's a sign of love in England. Because if you say something very rude to your best friend, you're actually saying, "I love you so much that I can say this dreadful thing to you, which I could never possibly say to anyone I didn't love." But that's much too sophisticated a way of thinking for a lot of people, because one of the great problems, I think, in the extremes of woke, there's a lot of woke that's very, very good and very sensible, particularly about racial discrimination. That's absolutely right. But when you start saying you can't make jokes, you say, but why should people who have no sense of humor decide what sort of humor should be entertaining people who do have a sense of humor? It's absolutely ridiculous. And the truth with a lot of the crazier work people is that they simply don't understand the importance of context because they are literal minded. They think that something means exactly what the words in the dictionary say it means. Whereas if you are using irony or sarcasm, the words are conveying the complete opposite of what you're saying. Do you see what I mean? If you say to a friend who's just said something stupid, oh, you are brilliant, aren't you? No, you don't mean you are brilliant, aren't you? You mean you're not brilliant, you see? So it depends on the context. So these people are completely blind to the importance of context. And so they can't see that a joke can be affectionate and fun, and you can laugh at the idea of something. You say, Fish Called Wanda. The three biggest laughs are when the three dogs are killed. You know what I mean? The audience scream with laughter at dogs being killed. If they actually saw a dog killed, they'd have a response. But you can laugh at the idea of something when you could never laugh at the reality of it. But that requires a sort of abstract thinking. I mean, when you go and watch a Tom and Jerry cartoon, right, which I adore, every time that Jerry runs a cat over with a steamroller, right? You don't think I can't laugh at that because that poor cat must be in agony. You're laughing at the idea of it, nothing to do with the reality of it, you see? So this business about humor is much subtler than people seem to understand, and there's a danger that people don't really understand it at all. We'll try to stop humor that is appreciated with the people with a sense of humor and a sense of context and a capacity for abstract thought. Thank you. There's a bit of a lecture, so here's a joke. Why do the French have so many civil wars? It's so that they can win one now and again. How many men does it take to defend Paris? We don't know, it's never been tried. I love those jokes. I talk about them as racial jokes. I say I love racial jokes, but actually they're cultural jokes, you know. And I like jokes like the Swiss take their own houses in at night. You know, those kind of things. Oh dear. Can I go now?
We gotta take some audience questions. And just real quick, I'll throw this out. I will never, ever, never not laugh at the moose scene in Faulty Towers. I can speak English.